Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We'll rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched Body Parts. Jon, and thank you for joining us on 1991 Movie Rewind. In Body Parts, Bill Chrushank, played by Jeff Fahey, is involved in a near-fatal car accident while heading to work. He is thrown out of the windshield and he loses his left arm in the incident. Dr. Agatha Webb, played by Lindsay Duncan, gets permission to perform an arm transplant on Bill, but the donor is a vicious death row inmate. Now that Bill has recovered, he is starting to have nasty visions, and his new arm seems to have a mind of its own. Screenplay by Eric Red and Norman Snyder, directed by Eric Red, and released on August 2nd, 1991. Have you seen Body Parts before?
No.
I feel like of any that we've seen recently, this is probably the most likely that you would have. Just because it got like a theatrical release and, you know,
I think
horror thriller type of thing. So
yeah, I think I've seen this box art.
Definitely seen the box art
At Blockbuster, but I never got it. Well, like when I was younger, we didn't rent scary movies because no one in my family really wanted to watch them. So like, and then I didn't want to watch it alone, so I just never got scary movies. I would just, whatever was on cable or TV that was like a scary movie is when I saw a scary movie.
Yeah. I thought maybe you might have seen this on HBO or something back in the day.
I don't remember this. The guy, like halfway through the movie, I was like, oh my god, this is the Lawnmower Man. Like, yeah. Because I used to watch Lawnmower Man and that freaked me out.
Oh, Lawnmower Man is one of the quote-unquote scary movies I did see as a kid, and I did not think it was scary in any way.
Really? I thought he was scary when he became the Lawnmower Man.
Maybe I just couldn't get past the computer graphics of the whole situation, perhaps. I don't know.
Oh, alright.
But yeah, he got a Fangoria Chainsaw nomination for Lawnmower Man. Jeff Fahey did. Yeah, I've seen the box of this one as well, but I never saw it. I mean, the name Body Parts kind of insinuates that it would be something of a Frankenstein tale.
I mean,
in a way it is.
I mean, yeah, you've got, Frankenstein, who is the doctor. You have these doctors who are like Frankenstein trying to play God in a way by doing these experimental transplants.
Yeah, it's a twist on it. So, you know, if you want to avoid spoilers, I mean, we always get into them in this podcast at some point. We're going to start now. The body is split between multiple people. Mm-hmm. And so the guy is coming to life through these other people. And whoever guy, the dead convict, the death row inmate, what's his name? It's Charles Fletcher. Mm-hmm. Whoever has Charles Fletcher's head, which that must have just been like some completely unsanctioned operation that Dr. Webb did that we just don't get to see or know anything about.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing that I really wish would have. Well, there's a few things
Seeing
I wish would have done differently in this, but yeah.
Yeah.
Or just get more background of it. Like, I understand having the reveal of Dr. Webb being also a bad guy comes near the end, and it's supposed to be a reveal when everyone kind of knows what's happening in the first place. So it would have been nice to see more about the circumstances around that? Like, how did she actually find the person to donate the body to put the head on?
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff?
Like, why... I mean, I understand that it's a death row inmate. And, yeah, like, was the death row inmate, did he sign up for this? Or they were like, you know, you could either die this way, or this way.
Right.
Like, we'll split your body up and give you your parts away to other people.
Yeah, and as far as I recall, there's no connection between Dr. Webb and Charles Fletcher personally, right? So it's not like she's specifically trying to bring him back.
Yeah, it's just
so
like...
So then why would she mess with the head of a serial killer when she can just do the other body parts? You know, that kind of parts, that stuff is kind of missing from
It would have been cool if they showed another, like, other bodies. Not just this one guy, Charles Fletcher's body being used amongst, like, 3 or 4 different people.
How would you want to do that? Would you want, like, multiple serial killers across the land? Or are you talking about just see other...
Like, are there other death row inmates that signed up for this? I don't know.
Okay.
Or...
Yeah.
And, like, what if they use their one... Like, what if these people used... like, one guy is like, okay, I'm just gonna give my... Like, he's still alive in death row, but his... Like, they chopped his arm off and gave his arm to someone else.
Yeah, like the progression leading up to this whole thing of the whole body being split.
Yeah.
You know, like, partial inmates on people who are still alive.
Or...
You get to see that.
Yeah, or... seeing them, like I don't know. I'm thinking of, like, they should have made like a sequel, and then I'll come up with this, where it's like 5 or 6 just different guys on death row or something. One of them has like a missing leg, one has a missing arm, you know, whatever. I mean, obviously, someone with a missing head is dead.
Well,
even though they're keeping his...
Except for Charles Fletcher, who's coming to collect his body parts near the end.
But, you know, you see all these guys... Like, that would have been a little bit more morbid, I think.
It would have. I mean, there's a couple different ways this movie could have gone. I think that would have been really interesting. And definitely would have played towards, like, a Nazi
or using,
Germany
like,
parallel,
their... Like, someone cut out one of their... kidneys or something, you know, like using their simple internal organs, like one of them has their heart taken.
Well, I think that's also one of the things that I wish this movie would have done a little bit differently is, so Bill Chrushank, he is a professor who's doing a lot of research on psychology, and he's interviewing inmates to learn their personalities. And, you know, like, if you watch Netflix's Mindhunter, it's like that type scenario where he's just interviewing inmates and trying to get in their heads and understand them, and his goal is to cure this broken mind, ultimately. And so when his arm starts taking over and making him see things and have these weird thoughts, they don't really dive into the actual psychology of it ever. They don't really, you know, the doctor says, oh, it's all in your mind, because she's in on it. Right?
Yeah.
And the wife is like, oh, well, it's all in your mind because the doctor says so. So, you know, and plus it's ridiculous. You know, it sounds like it's a ridiculous thing that your arm can control you and make you do different thoughts in your head. You know, you're not a serial killer just because you have his arm. But they should have, like, played up that angle a little bit more, and maybe talked about, you know, like, make him struggle mentally with the whole situation and show, you know, is this in my head? Was I already wanting to commit these actions and now I just have an excuse to do so?
Yeah.
Or is the arm actually making me do that? They don't really get into, like, they have, like, one line of dialogue that kind of says that, but it's not really explored within the narrative.
He's just saying, I'm having these visions after this arm transplant.
Yeah, and I think there's ways to do that, especially with the supporting characters, where you have Remo Lacey, played by Brad Dourif, and you have Mark Draper, played by Peter Murnick, who are the other recipients. So Draper received both of the legs, and then Lacey received the other arm. Neither of them are having the same negative stuff, really, for a while. I don't think Remo ever does. He has the visions, but
He
he's
has
using
the
it for his
visions,
art.
yeah.
And he's not experiencing any negative
But
connotations
he's not...
with that.
Yeah, because he's not using his arm... Well, because, you know, like Bill Chrushank, when he's playing with his son... Or, well, because Remo is just like this lonely artist. Bill Chrushank is... Interacting with his family, and, like, the one scene where he was, like, messing around with his son, and then all of a sudden, like, fucking smacks him across the head.
Yeah, they're like wrestling on the ground, and then he just wallops him.
There's another time where he's like, he wakes up and he's strangling his wife with that arm.
Mm-hmm.
So Remo, he's just kind of like this loner guy. So, but yeah, it could have shown him doing something like that with his arm.
It could have, and the only thing that we see with Draper is he's in traffic,
and then all of a sudden his legs
go out of control and run red lights, and he gets possibly close to in accidents and stuff. So, I mean,
and then it's funny how
but both of them are also very happy with the situation, and they don't want to reverse the operations because hey, I had no legs before, and now I can dunk a basketball.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, he fully learns how to walk and jump and become a basketball player all over again.
And Remo's like, I can make a lot of money with this art because, I'm having visions, but it's just images in my mind, like I'm painting them and I'm selling them for a lot of money. There's no downside to what happened to me right now. So they have that side of things, and so it almost would have been better to not see Draper have the car scene, because that would have led to the psychology part of it of it just being in Bill's mind, and he's the only one out of the three that has a problem with it.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen that way. I was gonna say something else about the accident, I think. So
his first accident?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I just think it's really... on why his arm was going to be ripped off?
Yeah, it kind of comes out of nowhere. I don't know. Like, the movie... Okay. The movie is a slow burn for a while. It's very much like The Unborn to me in its structure. And also some of the subject matter, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was comparing this movie, The Unborn, but then, because even at the end where the body, where he sees the body in that glass and it's moving around.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of Terror Within 2, but they didn't have that.
No, not really.
Okay, yeah, it was The Unborn.
It's The Unborn, and that would have, again, leading to your, alternate plot of having multiple people and multiple bodies and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to see multiple tanks of bodies
just
ready to be transplanted onto people.
That's what it would have been cool to see that. Like, they've done that. It's like as if this one guy is their first transplant donor, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And this is the first experiment. But I would have liked to have seen it done. Like when Bill Chrushank does come near the very end to the doctor's office and sees, the torso like moving back and forth, and then it's his other arm and then the two legs, because the guy is trying to come back together.
Yeah.
the dead guy, the donor guy. And it would have been cool to see other just floating bodies doing that too. It's such a weird thing. As if there should be more people. Then it would have put it in like Bill's mind, like, oh, there's other people out there that are from other serial killers or death row inmates.
Yeah, like he could have seen the tattoos on the arms and other tanks or something like that too, because that's how he learns that it's a serial killer, is that he's interviewing this guy Ray, who's on death row. He has the same tattoo. After the transplant, he sees that Bill has that tattoo, and he's like, no, get away from me. Like, that means you're weird, which is weird because they both have the same tattoo. So he's like, he like freaks out. He's
You're
like,
like
oh my
me.
gosh, you're this arm belonged to somebody, really terrible. So were you, like, you're in the same exact situation.
I think maybe because he was sort of looking up to him as a doctor, sort of, like, as if, why would a death row inmate be this psychologist? I don't know.
I don't know what Ray's purpose is aside from to identify the tattoo. I guess to establish Bill's character a little bit. So Ray Kohlberg is on death row and he's being interviewed at the beginning. And this is another problem that I have with the movie. It's very close to... It wants to be higher art than what it is. It tries to play with, like, filmmaking a bit.
Yeah.
When he's interviewing Ray, you have Ray's eyes in shadow and the mouth is in, like, light. And it's just weird to split the face up like that. Unless there's an actual purpose to it. Like, are you trying to say something about, what his words mean versus what he's saying with this? There's a lot of stuff like that happens in there. Or when you see Bill about to be operated on and he's being wheeled into the room, everything is stretched horizontally and, like, smushed. And I don't know. And there's, like, weird, like, zoom effects and a lot of, like, some cheesy camera work in that way. And it's trying to put, like, a visual flair onto things, and it just doesn't land for me. It doesn't have a purpose. So that's part of it. And so, yeah, Ray is all over the place with his conversations in the first conversation, too, because he's saying things like, no, I don't regret murdering this person at all. And then 3 seconds later, he's like, fix me, Bill, fix me, I'm a terrible person. And, he just does 180s all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just why Ray freaks out when he sees the tattoo, is because that's just him and unpredictable, loose cannon. I don't know.
Yeah. So after his accident and his wife has to make this life or death, like...
Well, not really life or death, but arm or no arm decision,
yeah,
really.
I would just be like, okay, he's gonna be Sans arm. I'm sorry. If he's still gonna be alive...
It's weird that it's her choice when we see that Bill is conscious.
He's still they're putting him... While they're cutting him, they're in the process of putting him under.
Yeah, they have not put him under by the time he's in the operating room.
So he's starting to see a chainsaw go down on his arm while
he sees the inmate's head get ripped off.
Yeah.
Before he gets put under.
I was thinking, was his arm really... I feel like maybe they lied to the wife and him. They were just like, oh, we found this guy in this horrible car accident. I feel like maybe his arm was fine, and they just wanted to experiment anyway and just take his arm.
That would be cool if that's true. From what I know of the
his
deleted scenes, it's not.
Oh.
Supposedly there was something that the studio asked to be removed from the film because of the gore of it, but when he gets into the car accident and thrown from the windshield, which is...
It's interesting. Is bonkers. I don't...
And that stuntman really did hurt himself. That was a real person flying through the air that high.
That's insane, because...
And he did hurt himself, and that's the take that stayed in the movie.
Because he hits over... It's a truck.
A truck rear ends him at full speed, apparently. After
and
he's been stopped.
He's obviously not wearing a seatbelt because his full body goes through the windshield, but it goes up. Like, his body goes up over the...
It gets ejected upwards over the other car that he slammed into.
Yeah.
So, like, a car loses its wheel, and so Bill has to stop to avoid hitting it, and then a truck just plows through them both.
Right.
And he's sandwiched in and sort of popped out. There was a scene that was deleted from that where he's laying on the pavement after the car crash, and you see his point of view staring at a severed arm.
Okay. Well, how is that gory?
Because it's a severed arm.
I mean, I feel like we see that now on Grey's Anatomy
and you also see it several other times in this movie. So
yeah,
we
there
don't know
are
to the
other
extent
gory
of it.
things.
I mean, there could have been like weird like effects and pools
Like
of blood from his
it was
socket.
still flopping up and down like a fish or something.
Could be. Yeah. But yeah, so
I mean, that would have been cool to see.
yeah, it would have, but we don't get to see it.
Okay, so they didn't.
So they did not plan for it to be.
All right. I mean, that would have been kind of.
We're creating a more intricate.
Yeah, I'm creating more of an interesting story. I would have liked to have seen, because that's what I thought. I was like, is his arm really severed, or was his arm really hurt? Because the way that they were cutting it, it was like right at the shoulder.
I mean, when he is being stretched in and he's still conscious, you do see his eyes open with like the stump. Like you do see that, but that doesn't mean that they took it off before wheeling him in. If you want to play it that way, you could have. So anyway, he gets his new arm after,
he does all this like
some
physical therapy. This is regarding Henry.
Yeah, and it's such a silent scene. There's like no noise at all throughout that entire scene of him trying to lift this tiny little dumbbell.
Yeah, and
like,
it's
no
5 minutes
noise,
long, but
no music.
it takes a long time to do physical therapy, especially if you have no feelings or whatever in your whatever body part you need to fix or work on. It takes like a couple of months at least.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very short montage once it gets going. But that first shot of him with the nurse behind him, it's dead silent, and no one's talking to each other. It's like no words of encouragement or anything like that.
Yeah, everyone's just watching him to see if this arm works.
And it suddenly jerks into position and does something good, and then a couple shots of a montage later, he's ready to leave the hospital. So, I mean, that's fine. I'm glad that they didn't waste a whole lot of time on it.
We didn't.
But I do kind of wonder.
That was funny.
I do kind of wonder how helpful this new arm really would have been, because when they show it, it's all cut to shit. There are scars everywhere on every single muscle of this thing.
Yeah, I was saying,
why?
It's his right arm. His left.
His right.
Yeah, because then he's right-handed because he was writing with that hand.
Yeah.
And he had to
shaves
have
his face,
he had to have relearned to write.
But what happened to the inmate before the arm got cut off to make it so scarred up?
He was an inmate. Maybe the inmate was
cutting his muscles along the
arteries
and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
It just didn't make sense. It's like, this does not look.
It makes it look as if it's very Frankensteinish, like they did.
It's just to make it look more gory than it needs
stitches up and down his arm or whatever.
There's no reason for the doctors to cut the biceps and triceps and stuff like that open.
And the arm looks a lot like his other arm. I mean, how do you get exact donors? And plus, you would need someone who had the same blood type as you to do this transplant. And
I'm okay
what
with
if the guy had one jacked arm and then one normal arm, Yeah. It would have been funny to see that, though.
It would have been.
And then I was thinking, like, this guy when he's like, I want to find out who I got my arm from, so he goes and gets his fingerprints from the new arm, and I was like, this guy has 2 different fingerprints, so he himself could be like a serial killer or a burglar using that one hand.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the different
a whole lot
fingerprints he has.
Yeah, so like once he learns that from Ray that his
and they would have to like give him a new identity, or I was thinking of like more things along the line.
So he's interviewing Ray at the police station, and immediately after finding out his arm came from a death row inmate, that's when he goes to the person at the fingerprint desk and says, "Hey, take my fingerprints," and then run them through the screen, and you get those wonderful 1991 computer graphics that you always see in, those just cheesy pre-programmed computer programs that make it look, like the fingerprints being analyzed and makes it look more high-tech than it's supposed to be in real life. And yeah, Charles Fletcher comes through with like a huge long list of stuff that he had done, and the word executed starts flashing on the screen, and it zooms in on that, of course.
I mean, so he's technically dead. So
well, the fingerprints.
Yeah,
obviously not Bill.
Yeah, but the guy, the donor, the serial killer. So I don't know. It's just I was like, he has a dead man's fingerprint.
Mm-hmm. But they don't do anything with that information other than to use it to confirm.
To be like, oh, well, your hand came from here. But if this were back in after his accident when his wife had to quickly sign these papers, wouldn't they have to tell this information to them? I don't know.
What, that it came from a death row inmate?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never dealt with the donor process at all.
Yeah, see,
so
I don't know, like, say if I
if
die, because I know, on your driver's license you can say that you're a donor. I don't know, I guess they won't tell.
Yeah, they won't say, oh, this came from John, this came from Nikki. Like, why would the name of the person necessarily matter?
Well, I don't know, this came from a woman who died 3 hours ago or something, I don't know.
And maybe they want to remain anonymous, and that's their right, too,
yeah.
I think. But, so, I'm not so much worried about that side. What I am kind of worried about is how Bill is just
because then the wife would have been like, no, I don't want my husband to have some serial killer arm.
Right, but obviously the doctor is going to hide that because of her position in this whole thing. What I do find weird is that Bill is able to very easily obtain all of the records of everyone else who got the parts. I mean, it's just 2 people, but it's right there for him to take.
Yeah, he got those records real quick.
So I don't remember how he found out about Draper's legs and his rehab, but he's there while Draper is rehabbing, and he's able to sneak into the room after Dr. Webb leaves and just pick up the file and look through it, and it has both Draper and Remo.
Their names, yeah.
Why would it have both of them?
It's like a booklet.
Yeah, like Remo's not rehabbing right now. Why would he be in that file? It doesn't make sense.
It's because it's connected to that donor.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that bothers me with this movie. I will say, like, as much as we're nitpicking, I don't know if it's even nitpicking, as much as we're pulling apart the plot, I did ultimately like this.
Yeah, I was like, this is actually a good movie. Because I was, like, into it. I was like, what's going to happen next?
It kind of felt like a mix between The Unborn and A Kiss Before Dying to me, but good.
But better than both.
Yeah, but better than both.
But we're still, like, nitpicking it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the fun of horror movies, I guess. And, like...
Yeah, I was...
he's, like, just in an empty hospital. That's becoming, like,
I was enjoying the movie, but I was just, like, going to the nth degree and asking myself questions. Why this? And why that? That's why I was, like, Googling, is there successful arm and leg transplants in the world? Like, I just started going on, like, a rabbit hole of limb transplants.
I don't know if anyone's trying that anymore.
I found one.
But I don't know if anyone's trying it too much anymore because
I don't know.
There's such advancements in the robotic and prosthetic legs that they don't need to.
Right. Well, I found one where a guy, this was from The Guardian, it was an Icelandic man. And this was almost like a year and a half ago in January 2021. It was a man who lost both his arms during like a freak work accident, but it took 23 years to find donors for a double arm and shoulder transplant. And it was successful according to this article. That's the only one where I was like, were there any successful limb transplants out there? Because I know, people get are starting to get face transplants, and
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
But
And you've heard stories
that's
about
skin. This is not like putting like bone to bone, you know?
right.
I'm trying. I don't know.
Yeah, like infusing the muscles from one person to another.
Yeah.
Seems complicated, obviously. You've heard the stories as well about organs coming
Right.
from certain people and people adopting the behaviors or the mannerisms of the organs. So, I
Yeah.
don't know if those stories started popping up before this movie or not. Probably they did. But this is, I don't know the source material very well, but this is actually based off of a French novel from,
Yeah.
the 1800s? So, or early 1900s?
Yeah, it's called Choice Cuts, and there was 2 French authors.
I'll let you pronounce their names. Pierre, I got that one.
Yeah, Pierre Boileau, and then they're both called Pierre.
Oh, I have Thomas.
Okay, it's Pierre Boileau and Pierre Irod. I probably gonna, but he's also known as Thomas Narcejac.
That's what I have.
They do a lot of the books that they write are the psychological suspense, and they do a lot of the movies came from Alfred Hitchcock, like Vertigo,
Sure, yeah.
and they did Diabolique. So I mean, yeah, they
the
had
novels
like
that
the
those
novels
movies were
that
based
those
off
yeah
of. Yeah.
from those movies. But
And so yeah, they probably did
these are
dive
from-
into the more of the mental side of things in the novel version of this.
yeah, these are from novels from the early 1900s that they wrote together.
And but I mean, you do. I've heard those stories of I got the organ of this person and I started acting like them a little bit more.
Yeah,
or
there
whatever.
was-
So like that does resonate as a thing that could be.
There's
happening.
that one movie with Sean Penn where he got the heart 21 grams. Did you
Didn't
ever-
see it.
Oh, I thought about that because he got a heart transplant, but. And then I was also thinking of, idle hands and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's not a transplant. That's just like your hand started to get a mind of its own. Like,
Wasn't that a hand? What? I don't remember anymore. It was attached to him at one point, wasn't it? In Idle Hands?
yeah, I mean, I saw
I
that
don't
movie
remember.
once.
I
really
saw it way back.
A long time ago.
20-something years ago.
And then,
But same basic thing.
yeah.
But let's get back to the empty hospital near the end, because that is becoming such a big pet peeve of mine. It's now happened in, 2 movies in a row? Because in 976 Evil, well, I guess it was an empty police station, but same basic type of situation, where
There's just no one working.
there's
at a
no
police
staff in this massive 24-hour building of
Mhm.
public service, and Bill is able to just walk right into this room where there's all these body parts in the tank waiting for him to discover.
Yeah, and it just seems as if.
Like, who else? What? This is a hospital.
Yeah, it just seems
It's an
as
operating wing of a hospital.
if the only doctor that's in that entire hospital is Dr. Webb.
Right. I don't know. It's becoming like a pet peeve of mine because it's too frequent.
It's not
it's
like
either we get
in sleep,
overcrowded hospitals
like in
1991
Sleeping with
movies.
the Enemy, where she had to look like a man
Right.
to go see her mom
Because it's
because there was just so many
too many people.
and or you have one doctor in a gigantic hospital, maybe.
Yeah, it's either the hospital is so overcrowded that everyone has to be operated on in the hallways, like we've seen in pretty much every other 1991 movie, or there's nobody working in the hospitals. I think it's just a horror movie thing. It's like the most recent Scream movie also did this stupid thing where it's like an entire wing of
there's
a
a
hospital
whole floor
with
where no one's around.
someone who's supposed to be guarded
Okay,
24
I don't
hours
know.
a day.
We're getting into like
But-
the times where I have been to a hospital. There are certain wings where there was a time where I got lost once, And I was like, no one's on this floor. So maybe, sure.
I can understand that there would be certain areas that would be...
There might be people... I didn't open all these random
now.
doors, but that entire hallway was empty with no one. So, yeah, I mean, it could be a giant hospital.
Whatever. There's a lot of problems with this movie, and I want to get into what happened and how those body parts got into the tank in a second.
All right.
But I think it's also important to recognize how bad some of this dialogue is. It is very... I don't know, it's laughable at times. It's a lot of the typical stuff that you would expect to hear in these, and it never goes into that deep philosophical direction that you want it to. It's a lot of stuff like, oh, does it bother you to touch my scars? It's like, oh, it's so gross, wife? Dad. Yeah.
Or the kids.
And then the kid's like, oh, it's so gross, Dad. And like the kid's like, oh, Mommy, it's an arm.
It's an arm.
I don't know. Or like when the kid like gets smacked when they're wrestling, and he's like, Mommy, what's wrong with Daddy? He's like, come on. Like it's just like the cheesiest, stupid dialogue.
I don't know. The whole thing with the kids were a little weird because after he comes back from his arm being fully working, I guess, they show like him and his wife
making out
in front of the kids, and the kids are just standing there staring at them,
and then they just start
cracking
laughing.
up, and they're like, ha 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 ha, you're kissing each other.
Yeah.
And then that was the end of that scene.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff with the kids, whatever,
yeah,
they're just kids, but then
they're there to add some
it was just
stakes
like,
to the situation.
What's wrong with Daddy? And then the wife is like, don't you ever fucking touch my child again.
Yeah.
And then that's when she kicks him out, basically.
But then he's allowed to go into their room and talk to them about how he's leaving alone. Like, immediately after. Wait, no.
It was like...
He got kicked out after he started choking her.
Oh, yeah, because... Yeah, that was the first warning, was when he smacked the shit out of his son.
Yeah. His first sign of trouble was when he cut himself shaving.
Yeah.
But the first sign that it affected other people is when he hit the son while they were wrestling.
And then later, he's choking the wife.
Yeah.
But then that's when he goes and tries to find Remo and...
Yeah, and can I also say, I don't understand the fight with the wife that happened earlier in the movie. There's a part where he's studying in his office, and she comes in really mad that he's studying in his office, even though, like the scene before that with them, she said, you're overreacting, you know what you should do, you should research into this stuff because that's what you're good at. And then all of a sudden, like, he's researching stuff and talking to the doctor again. And then she's mad at him for doing exactly what she said he should do.
I don't know.
I don't know if you... maybe... It just... Stuff like that kind of throws me out of the movie. It's like, this... A lot of this is just unmotivated or just cheesy, tacky dialogue. I think the best scenes are with...
stuff. I don't know.
I think the best scenes are with Remo.
Yeah, Remo's great, and I know he's the voice of Chucky, and...
Brad Dourif, voice of Chucky.
Which I wish I could see more of his acting than just, him being Chucky now.
Well, I'll tell you something. We'll see him a bunch in 1991.
Okay.
Do you want to know all the movies he's going to be in?
Sure.
All right, so Child's Play 3, of course. But we won't see him.
Yeah,
we'll just hear him.
The voice.
But beyond that, we got Murder Blues, Jungle Fever. He's in Jungle Fever. Chain Dance, Scream of Stone, and London Kills Me. So he's in like 6-7 movies in 1991. So we'll talk about him a lot more later on as well. But yeah, he's the voice of Chucky and whatnot.
I like him in this movie.
He is
great.
He is amazing in this movie. He has so much personality. I don't know. He's a quirky artist, but not like overly so. He's like quasi hippie-ish, but obviously capitalistic because he loves how much money he's
well,
getting
yeah,
from his art.
because he's living in this. It's always the artist always lives in some dinky studio, random apartment that's like in some rundown building, and then when Bill finds his apartment and all his paintings, he's like, I'm gonna make up to like $1 million with this stuff, and I'm gonna go with it. Like, I'm happy about this. Like, I don't care if I'm having these visions.
Yeah,
because these visions are what giving me the money.
Right. He's like, oh, you're having visions too? Cool, you paint it then.
Yeah.
Like that's his mindset. It's like leave me
Yeah,
alone.
he was showing all the. He was showing that what he used to do before the arm transplant, and it was just random landscapes, and now it's all these visions of people. It's like I kind of want to say Candyman, but
Sure. Yeah, it's visions of the past crimes.
yeah, but they're kind of close up. It's not really.
Right. Yeah, it's like segments, little tidbits of it.
Yeah,
it's huge scenes.
Not a literal painting of someone killing someone. It's just kind of like a hand on a neck or something like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Very close up.
Yeah.
Or screaming faces or something like that. Like The Scream or something like that.
But Brad, he steals every scene that he's in.
Yeah, he's great.
And I wish he was in more of them. There is, that opening scene where he first gets introduced after Bill tracks him down, steals medical records, and then tracks him down. And then there's also another scene after he finds Draper and kind of tracks him down too and stalks Draper, really just follows him as he plays basketball and watches him do the slam dunk thing, and then watches him get into this car accident thing and running red lights.
After that accident, he's like, hey, I can explain to you what you just did.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, I mean, it was just an accident, but, hey, I have legs again, so it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then, like, Draper and Remo and Bill all go to a bar together at some point, and they have a little interaction, sort of get the gang together before everything starts to really go to hell. But I really wish there would have been, I don't know, nothing against Peter Murnick, who played Mark Draper, but I would have rather have just seen Remo. I don't think you need to have the third guy necessarily. I don't know, like, maybe give Remo both of the legs or something. I want more Brad Dourif screen time is what I'm trying to say. Maybe cut some of the scenes with Zakes Mulcahy, who played Detective Sawchuck. As great as Zakes is typically, I didn't really like his performance as Detective Sawchuck in this. I didn't see the purpose of him being there most of the time.
Yeah, I don't know. He just would pop up randomly.
Yeah. And again, one of the times he pops up randomly
was
because of bad writing from the script writers who like, he arrests Bill because Bill's like, oh yeah, I was just here where this dead guy is. Don't worry about it.
I thought
he's like, well, I gotta arrest you now.
Yeah,
like,
so
come on, dude. Like, just explain
am.
yourself. Bill's like, I'm too tired to give you a response, basically.
I thought he was a doctor at first.
Oh, Zakes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they show him in the room where Bill was getting his arm transplant, but that's just, he was there just because of, well...
He was one of, like, the 50 cops who were surrounding the murderer.
Yeah.
To make sure he didn't escape.
We see it later on in the movie, too, but when Bill is getting his arm replaced, you see all these guys with guns around, and you're like, why? But then you realize it's because of this death row inmate being chopped up.
And then they leave as soon as the head comes off.
Yeah.
But
I thought he was in that room, and I thought he was a doctor, like he was
because he has the medical mask on and stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's in the OR.
And then I was like, wait a second. So he's a detective. Like halfway through, I was like, wait a second. He's a detective?
Yeah, because he shows up again halfway through and doesn't have anything else going on. I don't know. after they're at the bar, there's a big fight at the bar where the detective also shows up. And there's a little bit of a weird time jump.
The detective.
Maybe the detective was the one, but why would the detective be called in for the police call at the bar fight? I don't know. Whatever.
What if he's just following them because he's on the case for this death row guy getting
Again, I think you're making it.
And then people are
more
like
interesting than it actually is.
and then other people are like, "Hey, keep an eye out on these recipients of this dead guy, death row inmate guy's parts." So he's being the detective and like stalking them in a way.
Unfortunately, there's no evidence of that to put on my detective hat.
I'm just making it more interesting.
Yeah. After that bar fight happens, Draper, apparently it's a different night, but they make it seem like it's the exact same night.
Yeah.
Draper is in his apartment and he calls Bill, who's in a hotel now because he's been kicked out for assaulting his wife. So he calls to say hi, basically, and then he gets interrupted by somebody coming to the door and the phone is off the hook and Bill rushes over because he hears some struggle or something. By the way, Draper is I'm assuming that the building has an elevator, but he's walking up multiple flights of stairs.
I think he just wants to use his new legs.
I just hope that there is an elevator, because I'm just questioning, like, why would he have an upstairs apartment as a guy who had no legs in the first place? Anyway.
He would have moved then.
Maybe. Or there's an elevator somewhere in that building that we just don't see. But he's like really struggling to walk up those stairs. His legs are really bothering him, as if it's like a sign of something to come. I thought it was because he kicked Bill as part of the bar fight. Like the parts start sort of rebelling against each other a little bit. And Bill's arm punches Draper. And so Draper kicks Bill into Detective Sawchuck. But anyway, Bill goes over there and finds that Draper is dead. His legs have been removed. And that's when the detective shows up again and arrests Bill because he doesn't have a good reason to say why he's there, and he doesn't try to explain anything at all.
Right.
But he's able to convince Detective Sawchuck that Remo might also be in trouble. So they go there preemptively.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be right, because Remo is being thrown out the window right as the cop car arrives. Somehow, whoever the fuck has Charles Fletcher's head is able to rip the arm out of the socket.
I mean, it was a funny scene.
Yes, it is. It's a funny scene. But it's like,
how is that?
What a shitty operation this would have been.
Well, yeah, that's like they just use staples for these arms. But yeah, I mean, that scene just made me laugh. Just seeing the arm just like rip straight.
Yeah, just
off.
Very clean.
And then I was just laughing at, because you see
like
the guy's
head out of the ground.
It's this.
Oh, Remo's head?
No.
Oh.
The transplant.
Charles Fletcher's head.
Yeah, Charles Fletcher's head on someone else's body, because he still has a neck brace.
Yeah. To hide the neck makeup or whatever that they would have had to do otherwise to show the stitches and whatnot.
It was just funny.
Yeah, I mean, his facial reactions at all time were just like wide-eyed and like eyebrows high.
Yeah, it was cracking me up.
Just pure surprise the whole time. You recognize that guy though, right?
Yeah, you said it was.
Yeah, it's John Walsh, who played the villain in FX2, who chased them around in the supermarket and got saran wrapped at the end. He's also going to be in Scanners 2.
Wow.
And Deadly Surveillance in 1991. So very, very recognizable face to me, just from FX2, and very expressive one as well. Mostly a stuntman, so he does, these type of non-verbal villain roles. But anyway, he pulls off the arm of Remo and then Remo lands on the cop car right when it arrives and crashes through the windshield, and like you see this dummy version of Remo hit.
And then Bill's like, see, basically.
Yeah, it's like, hey, guess what? It wasn't me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then all of a sudden that got Charlie Fletcher guy with the neck brace drives on up and takes Bill Crushank's arm, and he conveniently has handcuffs and handcuffs his arm to Bill's arm, and then it's like another crazy chase scene.
Why he couldn't just rip the arm out of the socket as well?
Yeah, he could have just ripped it out if you really want that arm.
It's just like plucking a nose hair or whatever. You're like, why wouldn't you? But it leads to a really fun.
Yeah, the chase scene was.
Well, I guess it's not a chase scene because they're side by side the entire time. So high speed, whatever. So basically, like, yeah, Charles Fletcher is trying to speed up to rip
his arm off,
rip him out of the car, rip his arm off, or whatever. And so the cop car, driven by Detective Sawchuck, is trying to keep pace to avoid from that stuff happening and to whatever. And a lot of traffic, as you can imagine, tons of trucks that they have to weave in and out of. Yeah,
another cool car chase scene.
Yeah, and eventually, they get to a fork in the road, sort of this bridge underpass type of a thing. I don't know what it is, and they're able to use Detective's gun to shoot the handcuffs right on time before they had something bad happen. And then, the cop car spins out, and the other car is able to keep going. But then, just inexplicably, a couple seconds later, his car spins out. Charles Fletcher's car spins out.
I was like,
out of nowhere.
How did he get to the hospital and put his body parts back into that tank thing so quickly?
I don't know, but if it was so vital to do the operation like immediately, and there's no second to waste, then what does it really say? Because his car spins out unprompted.
He's got
and then explodes.
Random legs and an arm.
Yeah, he has the leg on the dashboard of the car as he's driving. and like the arms in the back seat. So the car explodes, but he's fine, and the body parts are also fine. He's able to scramble and like gather them all up like baguettes.
Those body parts would have to be on ice or something to keep them whatever. To keep them cool if you want to put your own body together.
I know, they've been like flame broiled at this point. And then the car explodes again as he's walking away with like a handful of body parts. And that's when the doctor shows up and helps him. I guess the doctor's been following. So
the doctor came, and then I was like, how did he get his arm and legs into that tank so quickly and whatever?
I guess the doctor must have been following them as well. And then just, because she shows up, and that's when we learn, she's the bad guy, even though we knew before she was the bad guy.
And then it turns into another cool scene where they just, Bill's like, just take my arm, I don't want it. And that's when the doctor tries... No. He...
Like, earlier in the movie, he's like, I don't want this arm anymore. And the doctor refuses.
She refuses, but then she's like, okay, I'll do it. But then he's like, no, I want my arm.
I guess.
And
I think he just doesn't want the serial killer to be put back together because he knows that's what's happening now.
Okay.
And so he's like, no, I'm not going to let this puzzle get put back together or something. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Because then that's when the Charlie Fletcher head guy comes in with a gun again in this operating room. And
shotgun.
A shotgun, yeah. And they have a fight, Bill and this Charlie Fletcher guy.
I guess there's a shotgun and a handgun, because it's not just Charlie Fletcher. There's some other thug nurse or whatever as well that gets killed.
Yeah, I think it's just Charlie the nurse, the doctor, Bill, and then the Charlie Fletcher guy.
Yeah, Charlie.
Like
Charlie
they're in
kills
this
him
secret
on accident.
operating room. Yeah.
So yeah, whatever.
They're about to saw off his arm, even though he's not gonna be anesthetized during this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a whole big fight. You know, he knocks out Dr. Webb for a while. She's kind of knocked out, like on the floor, and that's when he and Charlie Fletcher are fighting, and Charlie wants to shoot him. And then that's Bill has Detective Sawchuck's gun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, not only did he steal the cop car
He
to
has
chase
the
after
gun.
to chase after them, but yes, he also has the gun.
And that's when he uses
So,
that gun.
Not arrested for any of these crimes at all.
Right. Well, I mean,
You
he's
have like the
defending
stalking, the steal
himself.
medical records thing, and yeah, the
Right.
stealing
Yeah.
cop
I mean,
cars.
that's stealing medical records is extremely. You would have
You
to.
can get fined for that.
Yeah.
Trust me.
And then, yes, he kills the Charlie. Well, Charlie Fletcher shoots at him, but then ends up killing Dr. Webb and that nurse person. And then, you know, Bill gets up and he shoots up his body in the tank first. He's like shooting up the torso, so like
Yeah.
you can't use this body, so I'm gonna shoot it all up.
Yeah, again,
And
like
then
the
like the tank
unborn.
bursts and whatever. And then shoots the Charlie Fletcher head. And it explodes, basically.
Yeah. And then it's all happy and he's with the wife at the park. And evidently I guess the arm isn't acting up anymore because he still has the arm.
Yeah, he still has the arm
And
and he's
I
like
guess
writing a
because the
letter
brain is
to the
officially
doctor.
dead?
He's writing a letter to the dead doctor saying, "Hey, the arm actually works now, so thank you for my new arm." The end.
It's a weird movie, and it's also like it's cheesy in a lot of the right ways,
Yeah.
and it does take a long time for it to really get going. But once it goes, it goes. So it's a fun one. It was surprisingly fun, and it didn't start out that way. The first half hour or something, I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
kind of dreading the slow burn of it, but it finally picked up. But as we just said, there could have been a lot of different directions that it could have gone. It had a decent amount of gore and effects in there too, which is nice to see. It did have some awards, not major awards, but we're talking about like the Saturn Awards given out by the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. It won for the best music by, I don't know how to pronounce this name, Loke Dicker. Loekdikker. He's done movies like The Babysitter with what's-her-face, Alicia Silverstone, and Pascali's Island, Fourth Man, and Iris. I don't know some of those movies, but he won the Saturn Award for Best Music. It was also nominated for the Saturn for Best Horror Film, but lost to Silence of the Lambs. Best Director, lost to James Cameron for T2. And Best Makeup, of Gordon J. Smith did the makeup, but he lost to Silence of the Lambs for makeup. Just a weird choice.
The score was really good.
Yeah, it was.
And
it was sort of like 50s, 60s thriller-ish in a way.
And,
but...
yeah, in the beginning credits were cool because it shows the random body parts and then this kind of like eerie music.
And it's all in red with black background, so it's sort of like a lot of them look like wood carvings to me, like wood carving prints, but with red ink. Yeah, it was another cool opening credit sequence, and I wish there was more of those these days in movies. So aside from the Saturn Awards, also the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, it was just nominated for a couple things. We got Best Supporting Actress for Miss Lindsay Duncan, but she lost to Christina Ricci for Addams Family. Best Soundtrack, so Loke Dicker was nominated for soundtrack, but lost to T2 with the iconic, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. And then Makeup Effects also lost to T2. It did win the Fangoria Chainsaw Award for the Best Supporting Actor, Brad Dourif, though, to add to his Oscar nomination and Golden Globe and BAFTA winning role in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Emmy nomination for Deadwood, and he also has the Fangoria Hall of Fame award in 1999. So, and then that's it for awards. It didn't really make its money back in the box office. It made about $9 million on a $10 million budget, but it's, I guess, has a little bit of a cult following. I don't know. It has a really good box art, so I think that would probably draw people in back in those days. Don't know about so much now. Other cast and crew that we haven't talked about, Eric Red is the writer and director. He's known for things like The Hitcher 1 and 2, Near Dark, Blue Steel, and Bad Moon. Norman Snyder, the writer of this, also did things like Partners, Valentine's Day with Mario Van Peebles, Rated X, and also was Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers obviously had a lot more of the psychology aspect of the thrillers, and that was not brought over to this. Jeff Fahey, as we talked about from Lawnmower Man, he's going to be in the 1991 movies Iron Maze and also Iran, Days of Crisis. He's been in things like Psycho 3, Serpent's Lair, Darkman 3, Planet Terror, Machete, Alita Battle Angel, and Lost. He was Frank in 34 episodes of Lost, if you know that show. I don't, but maybe you do. Lindsay Duncan is a Tony Award winner for the play Private Lives, and she was also nominated for her stage work on Dangerous Liaisons as well.
Okay.
Film-wise, she's a British actress, so she does a lot of British productions like Loose Connections, Midsummer Night's Dream, Mansfield Park. She's been on the TV shows Rome and Discovery of Witches most recently as well. Kim Delaney played the wife, Karen. I don't think we mentioned her by name. Karen was the wife's name. Emmy winner and two-time nominee for NYPD Blue, where she played Diane Russell. Also nominated for her roles in General Hospital and All My Children for daytime Emmys. She'll be in the 1991 movie Hangfire. Also been in things like Darkman 2 and Project Metal Beast, Mission to Mars, and a TV show called Army Wives, which ran for quite a while but I've never heard of before. We've talked about Zake Smokey before because he was in Rage of Harlem. At least I think we talked about him.
Yeah.
I think we went over, like he's a Tony Award winner as well from 1982 for Master Harold, and also nominated how he fled South Africa, apartheid, and all that kind of stuff. So I think we talked about him before, so go ahead and watch our Rage in Harlem episode there. We got Paul Ben Victor, who played Ray Kohlberg. He's a facially recognizable character actor to me. I don't know, like he has a very distinguishable face.
I remember, he's like in The Wire and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's in The Wire. He's been in True Romance. He's been in Tombstone, In Plain Sight, which is a TV show, and then also an Invisible Man TV show he was in for a couple seasons. In 1991, his only other roles are on TV shows as well. Father Dowling Mysteries, he makes an appearance, and also The Trials of Rosie O'Neill, which we've talked about a couple times on this podcast. He's in one of those episodes. Peter Murnick played Mark Draper. He was a patrolman in Father of the Bride. I think he was probably the guy who told them to move their cars near the end.
Okay.
Probably. And he was also in an episode of
what patrolman?
Quantum Leap in 1991 as well. Otherwise, he's been in things like Hard Rain and Granite Falls. The only other person I want to mention is Bill Jr., the kid who got hit.
The guy is
because he looked familiar to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's because Nathaniel Moreau, who played Bill Jr., he's also in 1991 movies Married to It, but he was David in Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Okay.
And also he had a role in Kung Fu Legend Continues, which I think was a syndicated show with David Carradine, but I never saw that. So that's the cast and crew in a nutshell. We already talked about awards, so we can move on to true crime and pop culture.
Okay. I'll talk about a crime first, and then get into TV and what happened on this day. So I'm going to talk about the director, Eric Red. He was in a car accident.
Okay.
So this is from 3 different articles: the LA Times, Variety, and then LA Weekly. And this car accident / whatever, this weird incident It happened on May 31st, the year 2000. LA Times did a good article that came out in September 23rd, 2000. So I'm just going to quote some of this and then get into maybe the aftermath. Because I couldn't... The LA Weekly article came out in 2006, and that was just because of, like, the trial that happened afterwards in January 2006. So horror film director Eric Red was behind the wheel of his Jeep Cherokee when it plowed through a West LA pool hall on May 31st, 2000, killing 2 people, and he was driving on a restricted license and suffered from occasional blackouts.
Okay.
So the 2 people that died was a bar patron by the name of Noah Baum, he was 34, and then a person who was waiting for the bus, David Roos, he was 26. They were both struck and killed by Red's car after it plowed across 3 lanes on Wilshire Boulevard, over a bus stop, through the bar patio, and into the bar at Q's Billiards. And there were several other people injured. This article on LA Times, his attorney, who's Arthur Greenspan, was doing all of the answering of the questions. So he said that the 39-year-old director, after the incident, he passed a drug and alcohol test immediately after the crash, spent 2 weeks under psychiatric evaluation at UCLA Medical Center, and was interviewed by police a month after the accident. Greenspan said, "When something terrible happens, you want to blame somebody, but sometimes an accident is an accident." So after that accident into the bar, Red apparently came out of his car and tried to attempt suicide by slitting his own throat with a piece of broken glass. That's why he was immediately sent and evaluated at the psychiatric medical center. So others speculated that the director may have been reenacting a scene from a film. And there were 20 other witnesses that the detectives were questioning, and then the police concluded that the crash was an unavoidable accident. And this is also the detective saying, not always when someone dies in a traffic accident is there a criminal charge. Red was not charged with a crime at that time, and he was still licensed to drive, but his attorney, Greenspan, said, as it stands right now, he's not driving, nor does he have any desire to drive. And witnesses say before him plowing into that bar, someone saw Red initially bump into a car at a nearby stoplight, and then when the driver of the car that he hit got out to inspect the damage, he found that Red was slumped over the wheel, passed out. So people are thinking it's because he's having these weird blackouts.
Yeah, that was my first thought too when you said that he had his... So his license was suspended at the time of the accident already.
Yeah, he was driving on a suspended license. So
because of blackouts. So he had previous history of the blackouts before this happened.
And then he tapped this car at the stoplight. He was blacked out, and then they said seconds later that's when his car sped up into the bar and killed people. But then he came out, tried to slit his own throat.
Yeah, I can speculate on that too, but I don't know if it's worth doing.
And that's when
if you woke up from like passing out and finding that you killed somebody.
Yeah, you're like, oh shit, I'm just gonna kill myself.
Like, so, yeah, hearing, I mean, we see stories all the time about people driving into buildings, and it's usually like older people who have passed out or people who have had heart attacks and things like that, and they just listen to their car while they're driving.
Like, what if, people who have a history of seizures or something like that?
I'd be curious to know, like, what movie they think he was trying to reenact.
I mean, it kind of sounds like even what happened in Body Parts with what's-his-face with the legs. Like, all of a sudden his legs just decided to go. But I don't know.
They didn't crash into anybody, though.
I mean, not intentionally. I mean, he
didn't crash into a building. So,
he crashed into a building and 2 people were killed because
No, I'm saying in the movie.
Oh, in the movie, no. He didn't kill anyone.
So it's not similar enough for me to say it's a Body Parts connection. I don't know. I'd be interested to see.
It could have been like, I mean, this is in the year 2000. It could have been he did other movies besides that, or people are thinking like maybe
he Hitcher 1 or 2 or anything like that, or Bad Moon or any of the other ones he's done. So I don't know.
Or
it could have been not his movie that he was reenacting if he was, but I'd just be curious to know what movie they think it was.
Or it could have just been like a movie he was thinking of doing coming up or something. I don't know. But in the year 2000, this LA Weekly article I found was from January 2006, and it's a really long article about the trial that happened afterwards, because they didn't really sue Eric, but his car insurance company was a part of this, and the insurance company gave the family members of the 2 men that died, they were only offering $15,000, so $30,000, but $15,000 each. So it was like a long 5-year thing or trial where it was a lot of like appeals and stuff. In this LA, I was reading the article. It's a really long article, and there was a lot of appeals. But at the end of the day, I guess, at the end of everything, a jury awarded monetary damages to the families of the victims of $500,000 each. Okay, so going on to sort of TV and what happened on this day. So this is August 2nd, 1991, and it was a Friday. And we have the TV guide, but on TNT at 7 o'clock at night were the Pan American Games. It was like the opening ceremonies that were shown on TNT. The Pan American Games were held in Havana, Cuba in 1991. And it was from August 2nd to August 18th, 1991. There were 4,519 athletes from 39 different countries, and the most gold medal winners.
Do they not call them medals?
Well, yeah, gold medal winners were to Cuba, but the most medals won overall was the United States. So Cuba got 140 gold, United States got 130, but the United States got 352 total medals, whereas Cuba got 265. And then third place was Canada, then Brazil, then Mexico. And 1991 was also the debut of bowling in the Pan American Games.
Do you see who competed in that? Who won?
No, I didn't see who won what in this. It didn't show that. But I did see that there was under athletics. That includes walking. And I was like, I can do that. Like, how do you enter into
Don't you remember
walking?
Power walking back in the day?
Yeah, how do you enter into power walking? Because I can walk fast.
Side to side and stuff. Yeah. I don't know. You gotta join a club. Join a club, get noticed by the walking scouts.
But I just thought that was... Yeah, I didn't see, like, who specifically won. I couldn't find who specifically won what. But on YouTube... Yeah, maybe. And then on YouTube, they show... I found the opening ceremonies.
Okay. Well, we could put that on the website if you want.
Well, not the whole thing. It was like 5 minutes of the opening ceremonies. And then also on TV that I just thought was interesting because we usually just talk about what's on like ABC, NBC, Fox.
Yeah, but I think this is the same day as Doc Hollywood. So
Yeah.
we've covered all that exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the Family Channel was Rin Tin Tin K9.
Yeah, I remember they brought that show back.
Yeah,
they
these
brought
are
it back
all
as
like,
a show.
and then the new Zorro. These are all
Yeah.
I never watched these. Did you? I never
A tiny bit, but it wasn't my thing. I never really cared too much about Zorro.
Yeah, me neither.
I liked the '98 movie, but that was it.
Yeah, it was okay. And after that was Big Brother Jake, and then Maniac Mansion. I remember Maniac Mansion.
Yeah, we've talked about Maniac Mansion a couple times in there. That's one that I never really watched either, which is weird.
Yeah, since the video game is awesome.
Right, and like SCTV cast is in there, but we didn't watch it.
I just thought it was
so
interesting. So
Friday did not have the That's My Dog show, right?
No, I don't see that.
I don't know what you...
I don't know. That's My Dog. Maybe it was on a Saturday night.
That was like the dog trivia / athletic competition show between two families and their dogs. That was one of the best shows on Family Channel.
Was it? Oh,
but I don't know if it was 91 or not.
Oh, okay. But before the Pan American Games, there was like an hour and a half of Bugs Bunny cartoons on TNT.
So we'll move on to rankings and ratings. Where on your 1 to 5 star scale are you going to put body parts?
I don't know. I was going between like a 2 and a 3.
Gotta decide.
Okay, this is controversial.
You say it every time, and it's only controversial to your own mind.
I'm gonna give this a 3.
Alright.
Even though we like ripped it to shreds. We didn't like rip it to shreds. It's like I wanted it to be more like the ideas that was coming up in my head. I was like, yeah, if it would have been cooler if this happened. Yeah. But it was still a good. I was like interested the entire time. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. On my 0 to 4 star scale, I mean, I'm gonna go about the same. It's like 2.5, so like we're right there at like the middle ground, like slightly above average. So yeah, I mean, I think we're nitpicking it because we think it could have been better with just a little bit more polish, with a little bit more thought and nuance, and like let's make these movie making decisions count, and instead it's just a couple steps above really schlocky direct-to-video stuff. I don't know. Like it has great acting as like
this is like.
But like some of the plot
something that would have been on TNT or something at night. I just like it wasn't good enough to be HBO, but it could have been on TBS.
Yeah. It seems like too high quality for something like USA Up All Night, but it might have been on there. I don't think it was.
I don't think it was, because I feel like this is a good movie. Yeah. I don't know.
It's good, but not great. We'll just say it that way. Every movie is worth watching once. Would you watch this again?
Yeah, I would watch this, yeah.
I would too. It would be fun to watch it with an audience as well. But even without, I think it's, you can kind of like fast forward through like the first half hour and get past the car crash and then fast forward a little bit and then you'll be good.
Even though, I mean, that car crash was bonkers. I was like, what? How can you be transported up like that?
Yeah. If there is a actual version that exists, like an unrated cut that has like that shot and any other like gory stuff that they had to remove, put back in, then that'd be cool to see too. If you out there want to watch Body Parts as of this recording in September 2022, it's available on digital rental, VHS, or DVD. Check your local listings as that can change. You can listen to us on all of your major podcasting platforms. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends. It does help us out. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, YouTube. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of movies along with show notes and more. Next week, we're going to watch Highway to Hell. It's available on Tubi, digital rental, VHS, or DVD. We will see you then.